Hello everybody, I'm Dustin Benzel, and welcome to my reflection of Generation 1, the first generation of Pokemon anime. Woo! We're finally here, people. We finally arrived to the final reflections that we have. I have decided that after this, I'm actually going to do a reflection so far of Pokemon XY, so look forward to that. But this is all about the first gen. I'm not going to say first gen was actually the best. I'm not somebody who's nostalgic. I'm not that kind of person. I do appreciate nostalgia for some moments, like if you look back and you think of all the fun times you've had with friends and you want to revel in that, or hope that's the right word, or reminisce. I have no problem with reminiscing, but I'm always someone who always looks for the future to see what the future will bring. I'm not I'm not one of those things where I think I've criticized in a video. I'm not sure if I uploaded or not. I'm not someone who is looking for the next best thing per se, but I eagerly await what the future brings. Because the past, it varies per person. I'm sure for you, maybe the past is like something that you want to look for, or look forward to. I want to look forward to the past. Wait a minute, I just sound right. You may want to look back at the past and just study it and revere it, or however you want to do with the past. But for me, I want to look at what the future has to hold. So in relevance to the Pokemon generation, like I said, I'm not saying first generation was the best, because it was the first generation, and a lot of people think that in a lot of series out there that the first season, the first part, is always the most likely the best of the show, and sometimes that for other things that it may need to boil up to a particular point in like the second season or the third season or whatever you want to look at it, until it actually gets really good. It all varies, but a lot of people look at first generation anime, Pokemon anime, as like something to be revered, because, I understand, I'm sure there's a lot of feels in the childhood department, and I'm sure everyone knows all about the theme music of Pokemon. I want to be the very best, like no one ever was. I understand that's fine, but that's not really what I'm talking about. But I would have to say first generation is not exactly the my least favorite. I'm not gonna go so far as to completely take a crap on first generation, but the battles were kind of subpar, I guess, and there's a lot of stuff, but we'll get into that in just a moment. But so technically in my rating scale so far, if we know it, the worst series that I've had to watch is definitely the 5th generation. That series is the only time that I had to actually stop watching certain episodes of Pokemon, and that's the first time. And I blame the writers and the executive producers and everyone who created some sort of formula for that particular moment, because they could have done better. They gave Ash a whole bunch of Pokemon. Maybe that was one of the problems, but they really didn't develop the Pokemon at all. It was just, I don't know, I guess basically a filler after filler. The one decent thing that I'll say about 5th gen was that they did have a lot of battle tournaments, and I actually missed that. they weren't exactly well done per se, but the fact that they had battle tournaments was really nice, and we lack that in 6th gen right now. But anyway, so then after that, it would probably be 2nd gen, just simply because there was like no development whatsoever. There was training episodes, I will admit, Cyndaquil and Skarmory, I know that, but there was like literally no development. There was more development for Misty's and Brock's Pokemon than there was Ash's during the 2nd generation. So that's where I would put 2nd generation. So then the third, after 2nd gen, that's where 1st gen is. And that's simply because, as amazing as 1st generation was, I just think that Hoenn and Sinnoh and even the Kalos generation is just a little bit better because, the 1st generation they made mistakes and that's fine, but, it was like 3rd generation, 4th generation, and 6th generation that they, like, found a groove in how they wanted to present Pokemon anime, and therefore that's why it's a little bit better. But let's jump into 1st generation reflections. Let's start at the beginning. Good old Ash Ketchum, introducing 10-year-old boy, finally got his license, and he wakes up late because he threw all his alarms, I believe, or just at least one of his alarms, because he thought he was throwing a Pokeball, And, then we get Ash going on to Professor Oak's lab, and that's when he realizes he's a little late, can't get Bulbasaur, he can't get Squirtle, he can't get Charmander. What does he end up getting? A Pikachu! And not exactly a very nice Pikachu either. It wasn't... So then we run into Gary, Ash's rival. Now, there are some conflictions here, for what I know that it's probably been retconned like lots of times already, but one thing to note is that I don't know if it was the dub, but I think it was the dub where Gary didn't exactly acknowledge Ash as if he was notable or anything like that, but Gary and Ash grew up, so you would think that they would have a little bit more rivalry going off, and instead of the dub portraying Gary as some arrogant snob jerk who may have heard someone by the name of Ash Ketchum. But anyway, that's kind of irrelevant, kind of. But anyway, yeah, so then Ash leaves on his journey. Apparently he only has a mother, apparently. So then it goes on with Pikachu. Pikachu disobeys. Then we get a funny moment where the Pokedex calls Ash stupid, and Pikachu laughs its butt off. And then there's the moment where Pikachu saves Ash tries to protect Pikachu from a flock of Spearow, then Pikachu uses Thunder Shock, very powerful Thunder Shock. So then he takes it to tries to get it to the Pokemon Center. He runs into Misty, fries her bike accidentally because he grabbed it and he was pedaling like crazy, and that's when the whole Spearow thing came, and and then then that happened. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I'm doing it like this, but whatever. So, Misty joins the Ash's team, technically, because, Ash burnt Misty's bike through Thunder Shock, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So then Ash captures a Caterpie, then he catches a Pidgeotto, then he tries to battle Brock, technically. Brock didn't exactly do... it's kind of weird. When Brock was introduced into the anime, Brock was a very... I don't know, I guess stoic. I hope stoic's the right word. He was very... He he kind of acted like his specialty, which is a rock type. He kind of had that stony personality, you know, but I mean, there were moments within that particular 2 episode, I believe it was, where Brock did show a softer side and he wasn't so hard-assed, I guess you could say. You know, he wasn't so stony or rocky or whatever, and but it's kind of weird that during that whole battle with Ash, when it was Brock versus Ash, where he was just, you know, he's just like saying words in like kind of like a monotonic voice or whatever, and he's like, oh, la, la, la. Ash, you will battle me, or something of that nature. You know, it's kind of weird to see Brock like that, because in the future he actually gets a little bit different if we know Brock. You know, so yeah, it was pretty interesting. So then Brock decided to join Ash to travel with them. You know, looking back, I can't help but wonder why the writers or the executive producers did that. I'm like trying to imagine this for a moment, and then I'm thinking, let's see. Well, the Pokemon games came out, right? Right, writers, executive producers. Let's see. Well, we're going to create an anime series based on Pokemon. Okay, so we got this character. We'll call him Satoshi, after the creator of Pokemon, obviously. And he's going to go and he's going to run into Kasumi and Takashi, you know, and they're the gym leaders from the first 2 gyms, because that's all the game people would tell us about. You know, then they're going to travel with Ash, and he's going to have a whole bunch of adventures, going to do the gyms and stuff. You know? Then, after that, so, I'm sorry if I'm jumping all over the place. I kind of have no idea where this Reflections is going. So then Ash captures Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charmander. I don't think in that particular order. I think Charmander was first, then Squirtle. No, Bulbasaur, well, maybe it was in order. Maybe it was Bulbasaur. Bulbasaur. Yeah, it was Bulbasaur. I don't remember exactly. I think he did catch them in the order that they're in the Pokedex. So I think he did capture Bulbasaur first, then Charmander, then Squirtle. I remember he had Charmander when he caught Squirtle, because Charmander was used during that episode. But as for Bulbasaur, I think it could have been, but I'm not sure. Would make sense. So let's just pause right there in terms of developing the story anyway that happened. We'll skip the gyms for right now, and we'll just talk about Ash's team. Let's rewind a little bit to after Caterpie was caught, it evolved into Metapod at the end, and then afterwards, Metapod evolved into Butterfree in the Samurai episode, which is the 4th episode. Then, yeah, and I think the 5th episode was about Brock, possibly. Something of that nature. Anyway, well, in the future, what we have is Ash, after Ash caught Squirtle, or he had a full team at that point, I think. He had Pikachu, Pidgeotto, Butterfree, yeah, and then he had the 3 starters. At that particular point, Ash actually caught a Krabby. And then Butterfree was released at some point. The dub viewers never got to see Ash capture his 30 Tauros. Then there was Muck, Primeape. Primeape was released. Muck, Tauros, Krabby, okay. And then Charmander evolved twice. Bulbasaur refused to evolve, as did Pikachu. So I think that's it for gyms now. Yeah, no, that's it for gyms. I don't know why I was just talking about Ash's Pokemon, but you know, they're gyms. They're done. Okay, I guess we can talk about the league now. No, anyway, so let's rewind back to Brock. You know, That's the troubling thing about it. I can't help but wonder if they actually intended for Ash to actually have Pokemon that were weak against Brock. Now, if you remember in the games, if you chose Charmander, you had to get a Butterfree for Brock, at least in red and blue, and even yellow. You had to have a Butterfree. No, there was no, Butterfree was the only option against Brock. Because Rattata wouldn't have been able to do anything, Pidgey wouldn't have been able to do anything, and, technically Beedrill wouldn't have been able to do anything, but you needed to have Butterfree, and it's because it learned Confusion when it straight up evolved, and it was Confusion from a Butterfree that always helped players beat up, Brock, if you had Charmander. I like how in the third generation with remakes or whatever, they gave Charmander Metal Claw so that it probably would have a better chance at beating Brock, which is always nice. But yeah, in the first generation, only the first generation, Metal Claw I don't think existed until second gen, if that. A third generation move, but let me just look here at the moves real quick. Learn set. Let's go to generation 1. Yep, level 10 Confusion. Or level 12 even. So yeah, you needed to have a Butterfree in order to beat Brock. And that's only because there wasn't exactly very many rock-type moves. Otherwise, Butterfree would be a horrible choice. Beedrill would technically have been a better choice in that instance, because, at least it's not 4 times weak against rock types unlike Butterfree. But yeah, in the beginning, you had to have Butterfree. Now, I don't know why they didn't give Ash's Butterfree Confusion. I don't know if it was because it was a psychic type and psychic types were overpowered in the first generation as a result of Mewtwo. But anyway, yeah. So, yeah, the battle with Brock was pretty unusual because, not only did he have Pidgeotto, which wasn't really doing anything, but he also had Pikachu. And Pikachu couldn't do any damage, technically, or shouldn't have been able to do any damage to someone like Brock, because all Brock had was rock ground Pokemon. At this particular moment, he may have been a ground type trainer, because his Pokemon were both rock ground Pokemon, Geodude and Onix, So it's a little interesting that that they set it up like that, but whatever, right? Anyway, then we get into Misty. The battle with Misty. Now, this is pretty interesting because it was the anime that introduced anime-only characters. There's the whole bunch of siblings that Brock had to deal with. I don't even want to know why Brock has, 11 siblings or 10 siblings or whatever. I don't know why the writers chose to give Brock that many younger siblings, but, okay then. But then there's Misty. Misty also had siblings. She had 3 sisters, Daisy, Lily, and Violet. So, yes, pretty interesting, So, yeah, the battle against Misty wasn't exactly very well done. I mean, it was okay, but it's not what Ash got the badge for. I think Ash used Pidgeotto and Butterfree. Actually, at this point, I don't think Ash caught his 3 starters yet. I think this happened after the Misty battle. And the weird thing was Brock didn't even watch Ash battle Misty, which was pretty interesting because, looking back, you would have thought that Brock probably would have done that more and more. You would have had excuse me for a moment. You would think that Brock would probably go off somewhere in certain episodes, and then maybe that would have been turned into a plot point. But I guess they just didn't want Brock to interact with Misty's sisters for whatever reason. Well, I guess because of what Brock turned into later on. But anyway, so yeah, then there was the whole. So after that, I think is when Ash actually caught his 3 starter Pokemon: Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle. Then we run into Vermilion City with good old Lieutenant Surge. And Lieutenant Surge was a huge character. He was like twice as big as like Brock, I think. You know, Brock could like stand on Brock's shoulders. If Brock duplicated, and you know, let's just say Lieutenant Surge was huge. As far as I'm aware, he's the biggest human character within the anime that we've ever seen. I could be wrong, but he is huge. You know, I don't know if that was because they wanted Lieutenant Surge to look intimidating, but he was huge. So, that one was a very weird battle. I mean, it was Raichu versus Pikachu, and that was the whole episode where Pikachu refused to evolve, and it was Pikachu's quickness that Raichu apparently lost when evolving, because, as you know, when you evolve a Pokemon through stone, by stone evolution, they tend to not learn any other moves. I don't know why Game Freak did that, though. That honestly doesn't make any sense, you know. There may be some exceptions, like I think Blossom, I think, uses the Sunstone, I think, and Blossom, I think, can learn Petal Dance, but that might be the move relearner or something of that. I don't really know. But yeah, it always confused me why a Pokemon, once it evolved by stone, with the exception of the evolution Pokemon for obvious reasons, but for the most part, such as Raichu, when you use a Thunderstone on Pikachu and evolve it into Raichu, that's when we would get no more moves learned, and you were kind of stuck with whatever. So, if you wanted to have a Raichu, you had to wait at a particular moment before you could evolve Pikachu into Raichu so that its moveset would remain important enough. You wouldn't want to evolve a Pikachu when it only has like Thunder Shock or Tail Whip and stuff, because you ain't gonna get any better moves, because TMs really didn't exist very well much in the Pokemon anime. So anyway, the battle with Pikachu versus Raichu was interesting because, you know, it was evolution versus evolution, and it was the episode where Pikachu refused to evolve. Well, alright. So anyway, then we move into Erica. Erica wasn't really a battle. I neglected to say, but Ash won the Cascade badge from Misty as a result of saving the gym. And I like how, I don't know if it was Daisy, but it could have been Violet or Lily that mentioned that if Pikachu actually didn't refuse the battle, Misty would have lost. Oh, good old one of Misty's sisters. Anyway, so then we run into Erica. Erica was a very weird gym leader, or at least that whole thing was a weird gym. That was when we introduced Ash and cross-dressing, where he would dress up as a girl. Good old Ashley, apparently. So then we get Ash trying to masquerade himself as a girl, or at least someone who actually liked perfume, because that was the reason why Ash was refused admittance, because he had a problem with the odor of the perfume, or whatever the case was. Then Pikachu found him out, or because Ash was trying to tell Pikachu to stop blowing his cover, basically, and Pikachu got upset and shocked Ash. Then Erica decided to battle Ash, and then it didn't exactly go very well, not only because of Gloom's fumes and odors, but also because the gym caught on fire as a result of Team Rocket doing whatever the heck they were doing in whatever location they were at, if I'm not mistaken. So then it was basically Ash went in to save Gloom, and that's how he got the Rainbow Badge. Yeah, first generation probably technically had the worst gyms. overall. Yeah, I will have to say first gen had the worst gyms overall. There was a few good ones, like against Blaine, but that's it. I really can't think of any other gym battle in first generation that was actually relevant to actually see. So yeah, so anyway, that was Erica. Then we get the whole it was Sabrina. Sabrina. That whole episode was like so creepy. I swear there needs to be somebody out there that can make a game just on that episode of Pokemon with Sabrina and the creepy doll and the teleporting pads that Saffron City actually has. Oh, it was so creepy. Good old creepy Saffron, right? I mean, not only did... I really don't know what to say about that episode. Or the arc, anyway, you know. With the whole Sabrina producing a psychic image of her younger childhood or whatever, and something happening, and Sabrina wasn't exactly the same cheerful girl she was for some odd reason. I don't really remember if there was some storyline for why Sabrina was so not very notable. Or, no, that's not right. Not very active, I guess you could say. I mean, she was kind of like in a trance, basically. Sabrina's personality in the beginning was kind of like a trance. That's how she acted. It was like she was just saying words that just came out of her mouth. It's like she had no reason to care about the words or... Oh, I'm sorry, I'm so off. It's really hot in here. It's getting hot in here. No, never mind. I'm so editing that out. So Sabrina was very creepy. I really didn't like the battle because, because Sabrina's Kadabra was like so overpowered, psychic Pokemon. Hey, just like psychic Pokemon. But anyway, yeah, it's kind of like interesting to see that, okay, in order for Ash to battle Sabrina, Ash actually had to get a ghost type. Now, here's why I'm a little disappointed in general with first generation. Ash could have kept Haunter, which would have been very nice, because, it was the only ghost type, so at that particular moment, the only ghost type line. So it would have been interesting to see Ash with a Haunter, and maybe could have somehow evolved it into Gengar for some odd reason. They were a little bit loosey back then with the evolution rules of trade evolution, so they could have at least easily evolved it into Gengar. But yeah, it would have just been nice to see. But it didn't happen. So anyway, then we run into Koga. Koga, I'm not sure if you want to label it an actual battle, but it was pretty basic. There was Golbat versus Charmander. Ash ended up getting the Soul Badge or whatever the case was. And then we finally get into Charmander evolving into Charizard, like pretty much episode after episode. I mean, there was like a couple of episodes with Charmeleon, but I think only one, and then it evolved into Charizard. There was that Paris episode. I don't know if there was any other episode, but anyway, then Ash had a Charizard, that was a pretty fine plot at the beginning, or in the beginning, because, Ash having a very powerful Pokemon like Charizard, I can understand why there was some problems with that, but we'll get into why it was a little funky later on. But anyway, then we Blaine was actually a nice battle. Even if it was just technically just ended up being Charizard versus Magmar, it was still pretty good. But I have to call out the writers on something. I realized that the writers at this particular point had a whole lot of creative liberty to do however they wanted, to do what they wanted within the anime. but conveniently making Magmar immune to electric types just to give Ash a disadvantage was quite frankly bull. Now, however, if we go all the games, then we know that Ninetales can learn Energy Ball at some particular point. Oh, just for clarification, before with the Stone evolutions, not all Pokemon that evolve by Stone don't just stop learning more new moves. It's just that a lot of them do. Like Raichu, for example, and I think that also includes like Vileplume and Victory Bell. Although I'm not sure if they evolve by Stone. Yeah, they do. Okay. I got a little confused. I thought they were from the same evolutionary line at first, but then I'm realizing, oh no, wait, Weeping Bell goes into Victory Bell, and Gloom evolves into Vileplume. So anyway, yeah. So there are some exceptions, and I think one of those that I can think of is definitely Ninetales, because you evolve Vulpix by using a stone, Firestone, and right now Ninetales can actually learn a little bit more moves than, say, Vulpix. So one of those moves, I don't know if it can learn it naturally. I probably should have clarified that it could have been like a TM or a move learner move or something. But anyway, my point is Ninetales can learn Energy Ball. Those type of examples are okay because Energy Ball covers, I don't mind moves that give Pokemon advantage over Pokemon, even if it's out of sheer convenience just to make the battle more difficult for one trainer. But giving Magmar a stupid made-up ability that makes it immune to electric types as a result of being able to control the air around it or whatever the case was quite frankly bullcrap, simply for the fact that Magmar doesn't even have a weakness to electric types, so there would be no reason for Magmar to actually be immune to electric types. I mean, there could have been other things. See, Magmar is weak against rock, ground, and water type moves. Is there anything else? Not that I can think of, So, yeah, it was a little crap because it was just so... It was so convenient that it was only for Pikachu that unless Gary, who I'm pretty sure may have battled Blaine at this particular moment in time, told, "Hey, Ash Ketchum is coming and he has a Pikachu. Make sure your Magmar is immune to electric type." That, like I said, is straight up BS. That's not something that I really like. But outside of that little moment, and that was only the first part, but the second part, the rematch, when it was when Pikachu just got shoved up in the lava and stopped coming out of my mouth. No, when it was Charizard versus Magmar, that was a decent battle and probably one of the better battles of first generation. Up until we get into the League, of course. So then after that, then it's back on to Giovanni. Alright, so... Well, Ash didn't actually get to battle Giovanni. It was actually Team Rocket because at this particular moment, there was a crossover technically between the first movie as well as the anime series. And at that particular moment, Giovanni had to deal with Mewtwo. Because, why not? Because within the anime, it was Team Rocket that created Mewtwo. So, yeah. Then we get Team Rocket battling Ash. Team Rocket used their boss's Pokemon, like Kingler and Golem, and then Ash managed to get his final badge. At this particular moment, I will admit that Ash probably was technically a decent beginner trainer because it was his first time. It's just that battle-wise, he really didn't battle enough to actually warrant his place in there. Okay. So, yeah, that was pretty much it. So, anyway, I'm going to have to stop it here because we're already at I don't know what the editing is going to cut out, but we're already past the mark that I want it to be at. So, this is part one. Like I said, this one's probably going to definitely be 2 parts from my second generation because second generation is pretty basic and straightforward, but so Next, we're going to cover the league. We're going to talk about certain cool things about the league. Then we're going to try and jump into the Orange Islands. I don't quite remember their names, but I will touch up on the Orange Islands. And that will cover reflections of the past generations. Like I said, if you want me to do something in more depth, if you want me to do more comprehensive discussions in regards to these particular generations, if you want me to elaborate on something that I may have touched upon, go ahead and leave the suggestion, and if I get enough suggestions, I might very well do it. So, thank you for watching this one. I will see you in part 2. Goodbye.